You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button.
Let's talk a little bit about LSU football. So, obviously right now, the spotlight with the Tigers is squarely on the transfer portal, right? You know, spring football, wrapped up, finished, done, by all accounts, really successful. The NFL draft, now in the rearview mirror. Jaden Daniels is off to Washington, Malik Neighbors to New York, Brian Thomas to Jacksonville, along with two other guys, and, Mekhi Wingo's going, done. The focus squarely for them has been for a while, but for everybody else now, the only thing you really need to look at, transfer portal for LSU. And when you talk about that, you talk about one position in particular, and that is defensive tackle. Brian Kelly went so far on the record to say, I don't think there's any other position we need to target in the transfer portal other than the defensive tackle position. And so far, LSU has one guy in the boat, and that's Gio Paez from Wisconsin. We had Gio on this show. We've gone through him plenty. When Shea Dixon was with us last week, and Shea talked about defensive tackle, he mentioned wanting to get that number to 3. Like, you have Gio Paez in the boat. They'd like to get to 3. That would mean they have to take 2 more, right? Well, LSU is in the running for the top 2 uncommitted defensive tackles available in the transfer portal, and you should get news on their destination sometime this week. The latest is TCU transfer defensive tackle Dominic Williams. Dominic Williams is on campus today with LSU. He is the top remaining uncommitted defensive tackle in the transfer portal. This is an interesting story with Williams because LSU is squarely in the running, but there has been some changes to his visit schedule and whatnot, so much so that LSU is the last visit. So let's take you through a little bit of that journey and some background on Dominic Williams. I know Shay's been on the show and he's talked about him a little bit already before, but just a refresher. And Shay will be with us tomorrow to give us an update on the latest and all of that. So Dominic Williams has been a 2-year starter at TCU. And there's a lot of reasons to like this guy. Like, a lot of reasons. You can look at all the production he's had, and sure, that stands out fine, whatever. We can go through those numbers. But one of the reasons my eyes perk up or get big whenever I look and read and learn about a guy like Dominic Williams, he's still very raw. Like, you can still mold him, I feel. This is a guy who made his college debut at 17 years old in 2022. He's not even 20 years old yet. And as a 17-year-old at TCU, he started all 15 games for a team that went to the national championship game. They got drubbed by Georgia, but they went to the national championship game. And he was very impressive that year. 27 tackles, 1.5 sacks. Like, he was 4.5 TFLs. He was all over it. Freshman All-American by multiple publications. Incredible. This is a guy who was not highly recruited. Number 616 overall prospect out of high school when he signed with TCU. That's per on 3. And for him to explode onto the scene like that and then follow it up in 2023 by again starting all 12 of TCU's game, upping his stats, 33 tackles from 27, 5 TFLs from 4.5, 3 sacks from 1.5, again, all Big 12, the Big 12 defensive lineman of the year. Like, the development that has already taken place for him, and when you can still see so much that's left there to do, just given his age and things like that, like, there's plenty more room. And to potentially get him on a team that the room's going to be headed up by Bo Davis, like, yeah, there's a lot to like when you look at a guy like Dominic Williams from TCU. He's a guy that if you do land him, is a immediate plug-and-play starter, no doubt. So where does LSU stand? Well, told you he's on campus today and will be. This starts his visit. We mentioned there were some changes. So this is kind of how it's gone so far. And a giant hat tip to Shea Dixon over at On3. Wrote up a great piece today and kind of laid this out. And again, when Shea's with us tomorrow, he can kind of go through a little bit more and update how the visit's going and things of that nature. So Williams kicked things off visiting Oklahoma. He then took a visit to Texas. That wrapped up on Thursday. And from all accounts, it sounds like he was very impressed with Austin. And Texas right now stands to be the team to beat. One of the things you see in recruiting all the time that can tip you off to something like that too is when somebody's schedule or their plans change after they visited a certain place. And that's what happened after he left Austin. So he was originally supposed to visit Colorado this past weekend and then head to LSU. But he scrapped the Colorado visit, moved the LSU visit to now, and instead used the open weekend to go visit Missouri. But in turn, LSU gets the last visit. That's another thing you always see that's big in recruiting is getting that last visit, whether it's out of high school, whether it's transfer portal, doesn't matter. How many times do you hear guys always mention that? Oh, they got the last visit. They got the last chance to leave an impression. So that's why you can say, yeah, Texas is probably the team to beat right now. It looks like he had a great time. It forced changes to his schedule and all that. But the important thing is, it didn't change the LSU visit to not happening. So that obviously has to be a positive. And now you get him into a room with Bo Davis and, the many, many great recruiters on LSU staff, Frankels, all those guys with a chance to leave the last impression. It's a good spot for LSU to be in. Not saying they're going to get him. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. But they're in the running. And that is, in and of itself, encouraging. Let's see how they can close that out. The other guy to really keep an eye on is obviously Simeon Barrow, the transfer from Michigan State, who we've talked plenty about. And his decision should also be coming sometime this week. He mentioned late last week after his LSU visit wrapped up that he was hoping to make a decision by Thursday or Friday of this current week. So that would be the beginning of May. He's looking to make his decision. Simeon Barrow, of course, like I said, we've talked plenty about him. He ranks as now the number 2 uncommitted defensive tackle in the transfer portal, would also be an immediate plug-and-play guy. I'm not saying LSU is going to get both of these guys, but what LSU can't afford is to not get either of them. Like Simeon Barrow, after he left LSU, ended up taking visits to both Missouri and Miami. It seems like that's a Miami LSU battle, but things are just so fluid in these situations. I guess you never really can tell. But man, it feels paramount that LSU has to get at least one of these guys, because you're in a situation you were in last year, obviously as well, where defensive tackle was a big need for LSU, defensive line in general. I mean, you saw that just with the sheer numbers that they took there out of the portal. But you missed on your top targets. Like Jordan Jefferson ended up being a really nice player for LSU, and he's off now to a career with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Brian Kelly called him their best defensive lineman at points in 2023. But I mean, you were in on the with guys the likes of Braden Fisk, and you lost out to him. You lost out to Florida State for him, I should say. You're back in that same spot. You can't lose out on both of these guys again. It feels paramount for LSU that they at least get one of Simeon Barrow or Dominic Williams, because it just immediately changes your defensive line, like the way a guy, Braden Fisk, would have last year if you could have closed the deal. They're both plug and play from day one, starting in the middle for LSU. If you get both of them, my goodness. But you have to at least get one. And you'll await decisions, most likely this week. At least definitely from Simeon Barrow, in short order from Dominic Williams, who is on campus with LSU starting today, Monday, for his last visit here of this cycle, unless something, of course, changes there. But we'll keep you up to date. Again, Shea Dixon will be with us tomorrow, and he'll have the very latest. The portal window is also winding down, the spring portal window. There's only a few days left for guys to enter. Of course, you can commit at any time once you're into the portal, but to enter, it's only a 15-day window, right? And it is nearing its conclusion. So keep your eyes open for anybody potentially more from LSU that might hop in there in the next in the next coming days or so. But that window is definitely shrinking, and it is soon to be closed. And then it'll just be, where do guys land? But that's the latest on LSU and their biggest position of need. Big target on campus right now.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.